If Boston College does decide to move on from Earl Grant, there is one slam dunk hire, and he's just down the road. His name is Joe Gallo.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, details, and analysis on your Eagles, you are in the right spot. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put that same drive into every detail, wins define the moment, putting in that work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. On today's show, we're going to do another true freshman preview. We're going to look at Femi Babalola, one of the most exciting quarterbacks BC's brought in years. I'll explain why the staff is so excited about him and what he could bring to BC. We're going to look at an issue that's plaguing BC sports, specifically basketball, that no matter what they do, they're going to have to fix this by next year. And instead of going into BC getting clobbered by SMU, we're going to talk about a coach that I am all on board with hiring, and I think is the biggest slam dunk BC could get, and that is Merrimack head coach Joe Gallo. Now, many of you out there, you see the word Merrimack or Mac. It's not even Mac like Ohio and Miami Mac. It's MAAC. And you go, oh no, we just did this with Earl Grant. We did this, like these lower mid-level programs. Why would we want to do this? And so I'm going to explain to you why I think Joe Gallo is such a big deal. Now, on Saturday, Boston College played SMU, and they got absolutely trounced again. And they are now on an 8-game losing streak. The chase to 10 wins is going to be really tough. They got Notre Dame coming up. They could do that, but DJ Hand is still out. But every game, there's a new issue. Now it's defense. They went up 90 points to SMU. Like, what are we doing here? Like, it's continuing to go on, and it just feels like a slow plod to the end of the season. Now, you saw the thing we talked about it last week. Nick Petralia posted something that there was a chance, everything he's hearing in some opinion article that Earl Grant's going to be back. Now, again, it was an athletic article, but it was an opinion article. That's important. It was a column. It wasn't a report. Now, someone who I would trust way more, who's way more connected, is Jeff Goodman, who works for, I think it's just Field of 68 now, but he is just everywhere. And he tweeted out on Friday, Merrimack's Joe Gallo should be the front runner when Boston College opens, which is likely. So there you go. You have a national reporter, one of the most locked in guys in the country, saying that it looks like BC is going to move on. And I'll get into what a former player said on Earl Grant later, but this has to be done, right? So where do you go? You could go for the retreads. You could go through, BC is not going to be the most attractive job. So my hope is that BC pulls the trigger quickly so that the administration can get on this and get the guy that they want quickly. And that name has to be Joe Gallo. You want a guy who can come in here, who has an identity, who's going to bring an identity to your team, and who is a proven winner. And Joe Gallo checks off both of those boxes. And he's done it at a school with not a lot of resources. 3 boxes checked off right there. Now, remember, Merrimack just came up to the D1 level just a couple of years ago, and they've already won the MAC. They won it in 2023. They've won 3 straight Northeast Conference regular season championships, and he just wins and wins and wins. I saw a tweet that he has the most wins in the MAC level at that school than any other coach at his in history by this point, like in this amount of games that he's coached. So he's done a ton of that. Now, what's one thing you loved about Al Skinner, or what defined his teams? Because everyone goes back to Al Skinner for everything, right? It was that gritty, defense, the offense that was always, running their sets the way that they always did it. Like, that was always them. Now, Gallo's defense is 27th in the country. They average about, I think it was 66.9 points per game that they allow. And they are just brutal on opposing teams. They are just lock down. Now, their offense isn't the cleanest, but you know what? Al Skinner's teams never had great offenses really either. They had some good offenses, but they weren't really ever elite. Now, you look at Gallows and you say, okay, but their identity is their defense. Earl Grant says their identity is their defense too, and they've been let up 90 points 2 of the last 3 games. It's not their identity, their defense. All right. And the piece that gets to me, the piece that is different from Joe Gallo, from Earl Grant, and from Jim Christian is he wins and wins and wins. This reminds me of a certain coach that's now at Indiana, Curt Cignetti. Curt Cignetti, at every single stop he made, was a winner. You grab those coaches. That's why I was bummed to see Bob Chesney leave. And Bill O'Brien obviously deserves more time, but these coaches that you see them start at one level, they win. And that was with Joe Gallo. He won at Robert Morris, right? He moves up to the next level, and now he's at Merrimack again. And he's winning everywhere. And he's winning at Merrimack at such a high level that everyone's noticing him. You got to get these guys. You cannot let him go. This is so much more of a slam dunk hire than anyone else out there, that if they move on from Earl Grant, which, as Jeff Goodman just said in that tweet, it sounds like it's going to happen, you need to get a guy like Joe Gallo. He's local. He wins. He's from this, he puts identity. The team are we joke about Conti Morgue that no one shows up to those games. Did you get to watch? I think they were playing Quinnipiac the other day. That arena was rocking, and that's Merrimack. Get that excitement to BC. And you need to do this quickly because there are going to be other teams. Look at Providence right now. Providence, all their fans are talking about getting rid of Kim English, and that has not been a good fit for them. Who's the name that comes up for them? Joe Gallo. So this is why I'm saying with the Earl Grant stuff, get on this quickly. You don't need to do a national search. You don't need to do 15 interviews. If you have identified Joe Gallo as your guy, get out there and hire him now. Get him. Do not drag your feet. Don't do the Boston College thing that Boston College does all the time, which is take forever. Get him. He's gonna be in a tournament this year again, way more often than BC does. And as I said, I mentioned a little bit of the worries about his offense. He does have good players on his offense, which I think is really interesting to say. He just runs his offense through them. He's got a guy, Kevar Kennedy, who has 24 points and would look great in maroon and gold next year, by the way. That it's just like their star scorer, and they just go through them. So Gallo, to me, is the guy. This is the guy that I'm going to be harping about, if there's a coaching change. But it's a big thing here. BC has to change another piece to their whole profile, and I'll explain what that is in just a moment. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your posts. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support the show by saying you heard about it Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Are you a diehard Locked On Boston College fan? I know you are. Many of you are out there. Listen to me, multiple shows a week. You love to get your news from me. I'm one of the only out there that does this as a daily show. What am I saying? I'm the only one out there that does this as a daily show. You like your Boston College news from an insider, this is the place to be. Now, if you want to get even more, I'm just skimming the surface on this show. Become part of our Everydayer Club. You get all access to me. You get text messages from me with news, details, just scoops, things that are popping up. You get that. You get bonus shows. I have this new feature called First Cup with AJ, where I just go off on something, anything BC related. And I have lots I go on. It's a little bit, I don't want to say it's uncensored because I don't swear, but it's more off the cuff, more things that you want to know about, and more of my passion. And you get all of that if you're part of our all access tier. If you haven't signed up now, it's a perfect time to do it. You get a few free months. There's a whole bunch of other perks. Sign up below. Now, I'm going to leave that down there in case you haven't signed up yet. Now, let's get into it. So, Earl Grant, his seat has got to be scorching hot. And I can't find the comment. I don't know if he deleted it or whatever, but a former BC player, and I'm not going to say his name, who played at BC, because if he deleted it, I don't want to give him away. But what he basically said was, Earl Grant was his favorite coach to ever play for, and he now plays, professionally, and it's not Quentin Post, just say that. And B, the bigger issue here for BC isn't the coaching, it's the institutional support. And I don't agree. I didn't play for Earl Grant, so I can't say one way or the other. I've watched, and results speak for themselves. So from my perspective, I politely disagree with him there. But hey, he liked it. That's fine. The piece that I really liked, I really agree with, is the institutional support. Now, this player, I believe, was before NIL, and I don't want to even get into that piece because whatever the case may be, we continue to beat the same dead horse over and over again with this other piece that BC is going to have to do if they make a new hire, and that is improving the support for these programs. We just saw it with football. They're taking their first big step into actually becoming a realistic big-time program. And not big-time, but like where they need to be. They still feel a little bit behind, but they're not, like miles behind like they felt like they were for a couple years. Basketball feels like it's still miles behind. And no coach worth their weight is going to come to BC unless they get the support that they need to build their roster and have the financial support to do it the right way. Now, this will be the first coaching search if Earl Grant is gone, where BC will have a practice facility. Believe that was built when he was here. That's a good recruiting tool. It's a good thing, right? You have New Balance. That's also new, in the potential there. But it's the financial piece on top of all of that that's going to need to really sell it to a coach. You need to know that even if you're not Duke, if you're not, Kentucky or Texas Tech or these schools that have big time coffers, that they're going to have enough money to go out there and still be competitive. Okay. They need to go out there and get good transfers and attract good recruits to the school. And that's all based in NIL, and hopefully this new rev share piece will help them as well. But that all kind of combines with the school needs to step up. It needs to step up. And if they make a coaching change, this is the perfect opportunity to really revisit that and kick up their how much they are putting into this, because BC has been a joke for so long. They need, if they're a new coach, say Joe Gallo does come in here, that there's going to probably be players that are going to enter the portal. It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen if Earl Grant stays. It's just the way it works, right? you're going to need to go out there and basically basketball, the way it works, it feels like is you're building a new roster every year. That's the way it's not like football. It feels like every year your roster just turns over so fast. To do that and to be effective, BC needs to have the money to go out there and get those guys that are going to fit this new coach's system, that are going to improve the play and get wins. That's the bottom line right there, is who's going to come in here unless they get that kind of support. And BC is doing it. You can't say that BC is not taking steps in certain directions. Look, you may not think it's still enough, but they're doing it in football. They clearly have it going on in hockey. They've got it going on in women's lacrosse. Like, that's okay. But both basketball programs feel like they're miles behind, and they feel like they're both drowning. And that can change with the proper institutional support. One of the things this player said, and I don't know if they still do this, it was pretty damning, was that when he came in, they had him living in the same, I think he said the same dorm room as another basketball player. So it was two giant athletes living in, well, Edmonds or Walsh or whatever, in one of those small college rooms. You don't get that at other schools. Really, like, it may make you feel like, oh, why should we do this? But other schools treat athletes like gods. Like, that's kind of how it is. They're cash cows. That's the whole background of all this, right? The schools that get it treat these players so well because they make gobs of money off of them. They don't treat them like any other student because we're an institution and that's how we treat people. They treat them like, hey, you're making us a ton of money. Let's get you a nice apartment off campus where, you get your own, 2-bedroom apartment and it's furnished and everything, like that kind of stuff, right? That's how it is now. Not sure how things have changed with BC since this other player played here, but that's something that you need. That's like just a small example of, if that's still happening, that's a big problem. They need to be better than that, right? And we're going to have to wait to see if what Father Jack, for instance, his vision is going to be. Like, he's there. He's not taking over yet because Father Leahy's still there, but he is going to have to be the leader of all this. And it's a fine line. You have, who was it? NC State. I think Boo Kerrigan just said this weekend that they're working on a $40 million deficit every year. That's crazy. BC, I could see them really being very hesitant to putting themselves in such a financial predicament. But you also can't take these ACC checks and then just, have every team be in the gutter. It just doesn't work that way. You got to get better. So, yes, you want a new coach, because some of the things I will beat this drum until the end of my days. Some of the things that are going on where they're losing some of these games has nothing to do with NIL and stuff like that. It's like for how long, part of this losing streak was losing by 1 score, 2 score. I mean, if you're that close and there's issues, as Mike Sidley said on one of our previous shows, like every single game is like one big play where they just blow it. That's coaching. That has nothing to do with the size of a check a guy gets, at least in my opinion. Now, when you're getting blown out like you just did against SMU and you blown up against Duke, that's a different story, right? That's a difference in talent. That's a whole other thing. But for the most part, that is coaching. But there's a lot of this. Like, you want to get higher talent players in here. And to do that, you got to spend money. And again, I think every BC fan feels like a broken record with this. Get more money here. Spend it. Let's get some higher quality players here so that you can start winning some basketball games. Now, in our final segment, another freshman preview. I'm going to talk about Femi Babalola, who's a new freshman, who one of the most exciting players I think the coaching staff felt about coming in the class of 2026. Who is he? And what should we be looking for in him this year? I'll tell you more in just a moment. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. I'm going to have to talk about my guy, Matt Boldy, who a former BC player had a goal in the opening minutes of the Olympics today to beat Canada. Now, they had to come back and win in overtime. That was incredible. But Matt Boldy started them off on the right foot with that big goal. These remind us of what it takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the ice, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, the grit, and I never quit, winning that gold medal. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. Ever want to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock in. I love the futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds the extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now not only can you pick your cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and enter the chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all who've made Locked On Boston College your first listen. If you're looking for a second listen, check out Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono, talking all things ACC. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, welcome back to our freshman class profiles. I've been going over, as I said on our earlier shows, I've been going over some of the freshmen because with the transfer portal, coaching changes, I never really got a chance to go over National Signing Day, which honestly doesn't have the same flair as it did about 5 years ago. Like, it doesn't have that same feel. You got all these players in, and no one's talking about it because they're all talking about the transfers. They're talking about everything else. Well, I'm taking a step back now that things have quieted down, and I could talk about other sports. And believe me, I will talk hockey on a future episode. I want to get into Femi Babalola because BC has a completely redefined quarterbacks room. All four guys are brand new. You brought in Mason McKenzie from Saginaw Valley. You brought in Grayson Wilson from Arkansas, and then two freshmen, Anthony Colner and Babalola. Now, Babalola was rated an 87 on 247. And he was an interesting recruit because he played at Ravenwood, Tennessee. And he wasn't even the complete starting quarterback for that entire senior season. He split time with, I think his name was Maverick Chase, who is heading to Navy next year. He was an option quarterback. Babalola was more the pro style. And he drummed up a interest with Jonathan DiBiaso and the Boston College coaching staff really early. In fact, it was so early, no one even knew who he was. No, he's a 6'4" quarterback, great size. I think he's like 220 in terms of his frame. Bigger quarterback than I think BC's had in the last couple of years. And he's got an arm that really caught a lot of folks' attention. You're looking at what they said from Cooper Patania. He displays above average athleticism, navigating extended plays in the pocket, average mobility as a runner, appears to have clean shoulder high mechanics, and shows the ability to get the ball out quickly. Hey, that's something Bill O'Brien's going to love. Ball pops out of his hands, deep ball thrower who can rip it. Quick twitch mover with above average avoid and escapability. He projects to the P4 level as a high upside quarterback prospect with the physical tools to become an impact player. Now, I've told you, I've talked to many different people, and I know the staff is super excited about him. Now, in his recruitment, as I said early, he didn't get really recruited very much at all. But then near the end, people started to see what BC saw, and there were a bunch of suitors that came in and were trying to get him late. And, BC did a heck of a job fending off Deion Sanders, Maryland, Arizona. All these different schools wanted to come in and get him. But he ended up staying with BC, which is a credit to that staff because this is a guy with really good upside potential. Now, I was asked, one of the things I wanted to do with this segment was to give you a comp of a BC player that you could think of. And it was hard because the way he moves and the way he throws, I almost wanted to say Anthony Brown. He's not as mobile as Anthony Brown. And the player that I want to say that he reminds me the most in terms of just his build and the way he has a good deep ball. It's gonna make a lot of you guys cringe, but Phil Dracovic. Phil Dracovic 6'5", Femi's 6'4". Obviously there's going to be a lot more differences between the two, but you look at Babalola, and there really hasn't been quarterbacks in BC's history that do what he does. So he makes it almost like he's almost like a unicorn. Like other schools have had guys like him. BC hasn't. So I'm very interested to see what he does. And I don't have a good comp for him because he's just very different. And this year, I'm super excited to see what he does during camp. Though I want to say that I'm a little bit more on he's gonna, just like what Cooper is saying in that scouting report, it's probably gonna take him a little while. Like even his senior season, he was still splitting snaps. He's a project, right? But with huge upside. So I fully believe that Mason McKenzie is probably going to be the starting quarterback this year. You can redshirt Femi Babalola, but keep an eye on him because I think in a year or two, he will be the name that everyone's talking about as camp report comes out of him, hitting deep balls and his ability to be, to really rip it deep. That's the exciting part of Femi Babalola. And that's the part that I think will end up with him being a starter down the road. Thank you all for listening today. Later today, I'm going to do an episode on the Olympics because I wanted to talk about the end of the U.S. game. And I wanted to talk about the moment that really hit me hard, which was Johnny Gaudreau. I'll talk about that on a special episode coming up later today. Thank you all for following. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, all those other great social media sites, including TikTok. You'll see me again for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.